Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the number one source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lopsinger.
So there were two things that happened at the Christmas party you hosted yesterday, Ryan.
Why am I scared?
You shouldn't be. They're hilarious. Well, I thought they were hilarious. It wasn't hilarious at the start. So Catherine and I decided to come. We brought Sully, which was great. So we show up at your house and a child opens the door.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, we have a surprise to tell you. And you pointed at the child and I was like, oh my God.
This child is like a few years old, mind you.
But I thought this was like some sort of grand surprise. You're having a Christmas party to tell us that you were expecting a baby. And my jaw literally hit the floor. And then you were like, oh, no.
It was our friend's kid. And she was just like, every time the doorbell rang, she was welcoming people in. And most of these people had never met this child before.
Yes.
So I thought it was a funny bit. But, you know, as you tell it, I do understand where I was in a gray area there.
Yeah, maybe, a little bit funny, a little bit like my BPM like just shot through the roof for like 2.5 seconds.
Well, that's good. It's good to know that, you know, we can catch you off guard if we're ever fortunate enough to make that announcement. But now that way of doing it is shot. So used up that card without even knowing it.
It'll have to be next Christmas now.
Yep. Well, so that was story one.
Well, the second one is I can't believe someone crapped their pants at your Christmas party.
We kind of shuttled Brad out the back door. I didn't really want people to
get waddled out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, thankfully it was just Sully, but you know, we're happy.
Using your kid as cover after your accident.
Like, yeah, we really got to get out of here, guys.
That's tough. You know, between you and Sully, Catherine's a trooper.
Yes. Hey, his first Christmas party, he was rocking the Santa hat, had a good time.
That's a cute kid, man.
And then he was just like, you know what? We're done here. We're leaving.
I gotta say, I optimized my Sully hold time. Like, I came in and I said to Catherine, I'm like, if you don't want me to hold him, that's like, it's totally your call. But if you're like, I want a break, I'm happy to hold Sully. Like, he's sweet.
We're always looking for a break. Yeah.
And she was like, yes, please take him. And I held him. And then the moment I gave him back I think I gave him to you, Evan. Yeah, then he did what everyone should do at their first ever Christmas party, which is crap your pants.
He crapped his pants and a little bit of throw up. So I would say mission accomplished.
Sullivan Lopsinger.
Yep.
He'll take over one day. All right, folks. Some of you may have had a similar reaction to Sully when you saw that it was Minnesota for Quinn Hughes. So
yes.
Yeah, we have that to talk about. We have the Red Wings to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to discuss all of that and our subsequent reactions, the world of the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings, and lots more. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
This episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast is brought to you by Greenlight Lending. And for a limited time, WWP and Greenlight Lending are partnering to give you a prize pack, including exclusive co-branded Red Wings and Winged Wheel Podcast merch that you can't buy anywhere. It's from our previous events. We're giving that away to one listener in Michigan. Text WINGS to 586-321-1888 to enter. No purchase or mortgage inquiry required. Must be 18 years or older. Void where prohibited. See full rules and alternate entry at gogreenlightlending.com/wings-giveaway to enter for this prize pack and check out Greenlight Lending. On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we are going to be covering Detroit's 2 games since we last spoke. One, kind of okay. We recorded last Thursday morning, and then Thursday night they played the Oilers, and Connor McDavid was Connor McDavid. And then last night, Patrick Kane going to the United Center and scoring deeply unsurprisingly. The Red Wings put on a show. John Gibson continues his FU Evan Lopsinger revenge tour. Which is,
because I'm the only person.
It's
just me.
It's just
me. I'm on an island by
myself. I'm the guy who had John Gibson on the positive end of my very forced hot takes.
That's true.
I'm going to take this small moment of vindication where I can. And then we're going to be getting into, a bunch of other small things as we can, but for the most part, it's going to be the fallout from the Quinn Hughes to Minnesota Wild trade. Our thoughts on the return, what happened with the Red Wings bid, where a comparable trade would have been for Detroit, all of that, and I'm sure plenty more. First, very quickly, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast if you want to support the show, allow us to do everything we do, and get access to great benefits like our bonus overtime episodes, which record right after these main ones. We let loose, we have fun, you get more stories and thoughts with Evan, you get bloopers and outtakes, which are usually a little bit out there, but we hope you get a kick out of them. It's a good time. You also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, and you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways with an opportunity to enter for a chance to win 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game, all of them going directly again to our Patreon supporters. So patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. All right, 2 games since we last recorded. A loss against Edmonton and then a win against the Chicago Blackhawks. The road trip is now complete. And I have to say, even though it was a 1-1 result and the Edmonton game wasn't really close, I think those were 2 really decent to great games for Detroit, especially considering where they were on the other side of a back-to-back for Edmonton and then the last game of a road trip against Chicago with travel there.
I wouldn't call it a great result against Edmonton, but better than expected.
Yeah, like
I think on the OT episode before, I predicted a 6-1 Edmonton win. So 4-1 is definitely better than I was expecting. There's only so much you're going to be able to do, contain McDavid. And again, nearing the end of a road trip, back to back. Don't feel like Detroit played particularly well against Vancouver or Calgary going in. So it's not like they were rolling walking into Edmonton despite the 2 wins. Yeah, that felt like the expected result.
So 4-1 result, Detroit's only goal came off of Simon Edvinsson, who didn't end up missing the game. There was a fear that after taking the shot to the ankle against Calgary that he would miss the game. There was an emergency call-up of Gustafsson to kind of account for that and be a backstop there, but he ended up suiting up, which was pretty sweet, and he ended up scoring off a feed from Nate Danielson as Edvinsson trailed the play and crashed the net. Soderblom as well, factoring in on that goal. But by and large, I think in my viewing, that was a story of Edmonton was the better team for sure, but Detroit, it wasn't a terrible effort. They just didn't capitalize on their chances, and you can see quality chances were few and far between, and especially as the game went on, they didn't really threaten much more. And Connor McDavid was just doing absolutely nutty Connor McDavid things.
Yeah, it feels like Connor McDavid has really sort of turned it on the past little bit, which is terrifying when you're like some guys can turn it on and be decent players. Connor McDavid can turn it on and just win games single-handedly.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can never be upset when you see Connor McDavid buzzing around, setting everybody up. Like, there's a reason why they went to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row. It's an impossible task to try and contain him. So big back-to-back on the West Coast swing there. Like, I'm not too heartbroken by that loss.
That backwards pass between his legs, you just have to look at that and laugh. You're like, what do you meant to do about that?
What do you do?
I was talking to Edmonton radio and they said, what are you looking for whenever Detroit plays Edmonton? And it was exactly that. It's just contain McDavid and Draisaitl and try to push off the pain as long as you can. Because one time, a long time ago, I had a tweet drafted about Detroit has held McDavid and Draisaitl off the score sheet until it was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe left in the game. And then they finished that game with 4 points between the two of them. And I was like, well, I'm never making that mistake again in tempting fate. So Detroit loses, like Brad said, you're not going to celebrate a loss, but in terms of efforts overall, even McClellan said like that was far, far from a bad one. And you just have to take those and call it a scheduled loss, call it whatever, but you move on and move on. They did 4-0 against the Connor Bedard-less Chicago Blackhawks. Bedard went down with kind of a freak injury the game prior, but 4-0 results, nevertheless huge for the Red Wings. Another John Gibson shutout, and that was Kane putting on a show. That was Alex DeBRINCAT putting on a show. John Gibson, like, I struggle to think of too many road trips that ended on such a high note like that game.
I appreciate that game. I got home right as puck drop was, and I think the puck had been dropped for 5 seconds when we turned the TV on. And by the time I got Hank his drink, grabbed a snack for myself and the Red Wings were up 2-0. I was like, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. This is pointing out that the Bedard-less Chicago Blackhawks is relevant. They were missing a couple key players, and they are starting to look more like the Chicago Blackhawks of last year. So when you run into some fortune like that on your schedule, you have to capitalize, and you have to, not that you have to dominate, but in a scenario like that, if you have playoff aspirations, you should look like you're kicking the crap out of the Hawks. And for most of that game, it looked like the Red Wings were the far superior team. So last game of a long road trip, a lot of travel, changing time zones from the game before, walking into at least a favorable scenario on the opponent. The Red Wings did what they needed to do. And I know it's been a theme this year, and we've pointed out that it never used to happen, where when you get good opportunities like this, don't blow it. So for them to go in and, for lack of a better term, put belt to ass kind of felt right.
Yeah, the comments that I saw, which were very fair of, yeah, they won 4-0 and it was a fun display, but, it's the Blackhawks and no Bedard. And as Brad alluded to, their underlying numbers cratered after a hot start. Like, this team is now performing as, the metrics and what you would see on paper would suggest. And that's fair. Like, yeah, the Red Wings should win those games, but Brad is 100% right. Playoff teams, they don't always win exclusively like miracle on ice, best on best. You're playing the prime Colorado Avalanche this season games. No, a lot of your games, and if you're a good team, the majority of your games are going to come against teams who you should beat most nights. And where Detroit has faltered, I'm not saying at the lowest lows of the rebuild, but over the last 3-4 years, is they haven't won those games. They've gotten to be better than a lot of teams in this league on paper, but they haven't been winning as many games as they should. And that's the difference between teams who not have been there and done that, but the teams who get there to the playoffs, they win the ones where you're like, yeah, on the schedule, we should be taking this game more often than not. So I have a lot of, you don't make this to be a game that signifies that they're a cup contender or anything, but I have a lot of importance placed on these kinds of games where the Red Wings should be winning, and we're seeing that a bit more this year than previous years.
And I think if that game was really close or the Red Wings, lost in overtime or what have you, it could have been like, yeah, it was the end of a long road trip. The gas tank is low right now. They just need to get home and reset. But the fact that they basically just went into Chicago, controlled the game right off the hop, which is important too, and they never really let Chicago sniff a chance of getting into that game. That's what you really, really like to see. I think that's the bigger takeaway than I think. Well, the 2 points are important, but I think that's a really good sort of culture thing to see from that team.
Yeah, 100%. Like, the excuses are the excuses, but the less you're using them, obviously, the better you're able to figure these things out. So Alex DeBRINCAT, as Evan mentioned there, he opened scoring under a minute in off a nice feed, good work down low, a nice feed from Copp, which, again, we talked last episode about how well things are working. DeBRINCAT scores his 17th of the season, and then not even 5 minutes into the game, Patrick Kane scores his 6th of the season, number 498 for his career from DeBRINCAT on the rush. It was a really cool mic'd up moment where you heard him call for it from Cat, and then you knew Patrick Kane was going to score at the United Center. And then Emmitt Finnie scored in the second period from Raymond and Sandin-Pellikka, but Sandin-Pellikka is the one who created that whole play. Like, good work to protect the puck, create space, work the blue line, show off, again, his
We've got Quinn Hughes at home.
Yeah. Like, you couldn't ask for a better time for Sandin-Pellikka to show that off right after Detroit didn't get Quinn Hughes. You're like, okay, we still have something,
Yeah.
But that was, 3 episodes in a row now we've been talking about Sandin-Pellikka's increased offensive confidence. That was cool to watch him work there.
Yeah, this is what you want to see from him. Just more comfortable with the puck, more taking risks, more willing to activate and try stuff like that. It's not a completely safe play on that part of the blue line. So it was, cool to see him try it. And again, once he ran out of room, let's just get a simple shot to the net and see what happens. Which, again, smart play, not a fancy play to end off what was a very fancy play. But it's just smart. And again, 2/3 of that draft class again combining on a goal.
Yep.
Did you see 32 Thoughts? Someone asked the question we were wondering about an episode or two ago when I think it was Finnie had the goal from Danielson and Sandin-Pellikka.
Yep.
First time in Red Wings history, 3 rookies from the same draft class did that. 10th time in NHL history it's happened. First since 2006.
I think it was 2006,
Jeez.
the Flyers.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. The fact that that's the first time in Red Wings franchise history is unreal.
Especially in the early days of the NHL when there's only so many players to go around.
And then you think of like some extremely strong drafts that the Red Wings have had too. Like,
Pretty fitting it happens in the centennial year as well.
yeah, that's a cool moment that happened and that they're still connecting. DeBRINCAT scores again on the empty net to seal it 4-0. That puts him on a 45 goal pace.
Well, I mean, he was trying not to. It was like, no, you shoot it. No, you shoot it with Patrick Kane. It was cute until it was like, please God, please God, just put it in the net.
Please, someone. The guys who are getting close to milestones, their allergies to empty netters is funny to watch. You understand it. You don't want the bad juju, you know? You don't want to jinx the next one after that. So Detroit comes home with 2 points in altogether very successful road trip, I would say, by anyone's standards in terms of what you expect. And they're, not firming things up, but they're starting to get some footing now in the standings where it's not, dropping out of a divisional seed every single night kind of thing. Like they are, through 33 games, a 39-point team, second divisional seed, and they have a little bit of margin. Teams have games in hand, but Detroit is keeping pace. 5-3-2 in their last 10 is not incredible, but it's far from what you'd expect from road trips for previous Red Wings teams. So some storylines. John Gibson, that's his 5th straight win, 2nd shutout in 3 games, .940 save percentage, and he has also, according to HockeyStats.com, worked himself out of the bottom 15 goaltenders in the NHL in terms of goals saved above expected, because he was at the bottom of that list for a while, and now he is no longer in the picture of the bottom of the standings. So baby step, that's bigger than a baby step. That's a pretty
incremental improvements. Yes,
that's a big toddler step there. But no, John Gibson has been like the performances have been coming, and he's looking more and more settled, more and more often.
I don't know why you're pointing that out. We've been notoriously positive about John Gibson on this podcast.
One of us has had faith in John Gibson. Blind and misplaced for a good amount of time at the start of the season, but I'm taking my accidental wins, even if it's temporary, as often as I can.
I hope this is just, he's finally comfortable with a new team, new group in front of him, new system. And, it got a little deep into the season for me to buy that excuse. But at this point, yeah, if this is real, I guess better late than never.
If he can, you're not expecting this kind of performance every single game in and game out, obviously, but just the look of feeling more comfortable is the biggest takeaway for me. Because as we mentioned earlier, a lot of this season, he's not looked the most settled in his net. It looked like he was, fighting to get to the puck on time, a little bit more reactionary than proactive movements kind of thing, and positioning wasn't looking the most comfortable. Screens really unsettled him easily, it felt like. So the 2 shutouts are fantastic, and the .940 save percentage is fantastic, and the stats and the numbers, of course, because the goalies were genuinely losing the Red Wings games. But long-term, what you're wanting to see is just more of that comfortability, because that's when you get closer to league average goaltending, and then that's worth at least a few standings points by now. Because if you also look at, whatever metric or source you want to use here, a lot of the Red Wings numbers in terms of what their expected goals would be are kind of in the gutter, or their differential in expected goals, and yeah, shooting ability is some of that, but so is their goaltending. So when I say it means standings points, genuinely through under halfway, but we're getting to the halfway mark here of the season. I think it's worth at least 3-4 by some rough back of the napkin math. And that could be huge, especially in an Atlantic race and an Eastern Conference race that's looking to be extremely tight.
Yeah, I think it's great to see John Gibson now coming around and settling in. Hopefully this is the trending upwards, because, games only become more important now on, especially as the divisional games start to ramp up a little bit more. This is a positive trend, because we were saying if the Red Wings could just get average goaltending right now, they would be pulling very far away from a lot of the teams in the Atlantic. And the fact that, there were quite a few lost games due to goaltending, it was making things difficult for the Red Wings. So this is a very positive trend. You just hope hopefully this takes some pressure off Cam Talbot.
Mm-hmm.
If John Gibson can settle in now, he can, play a little bit less, not feel like the entire team's season is on his back. Hopefully this is a good trend where they can do a 1A, 1B type situation.
Helping the situation is how much Detroit's best players are producing. And, not even just Larkin and Raymond, who are the story a lot of the times, or most side are like Kane and DeBRINCAT. DeBRINCAT since December 2nd has 6 goals and 5 assists, 11 points, believe tied for third in the NHL in that span for points, and just been absolutely on fire. We talked last episode about how his shot has to be one of the most lethal releases in the NHL right now in terms of he's shooting, you're expecting that puck to go in, and his connection with Patrick Kane ages like fine wine. Those two, the way they mesh together it's almost unparalleled. Like there's very few pairs across the league where I think can match their level of mind meld, and it's breaking teams. Like it put Chicago out of the game early and they never got back in it, and it's they're capitalizing on turnovers and mistakes. And again, credit to Andrew Copp, who's fitting in extremely nicely between the two of them. So DeBRINCAT scoring, his pace is 45 goals or so. Massive, massive, massive after his slow start. And Detroit and their December scaries, at least through about half the month, they're not here yet. 5-1-1 since December 2nd, this team.
Truly historic.
It is. It is historic. Like that, we are so used to December being one of the automatically terrible months for this team. So on this podcast, this is a historic start for the Red Wings.
It truly is incredible.
If you told me this is more wins in December than the last 4 Decembers combined, I'd believe you.
Don't even go back and check, just vibes-wise, yeah. Someone mentioned, don't jinx it. Hey, the month's only halfway over. I'm like, they could lose out the rest of this month, and I still think they would come out ahead of a lot of other Decembers.
We would probably say this was a very successful December for the Detroit Red Wings, at least in podcast history.
5-8-1. Nailed it.
In terms of, what makes Detroit a better team this season, you often get asked the question, and it's these small things, like these little flags of, where they're improving compared to previous seasons, winning the games against teams where they should be beating them, not getting completely caved in the month of December. Does that mean they are guaranteed the playoffs or to be a competitive team that's going to win rounds for sure? Far from it, but you got to start somewhere, and these are the kinds of black holes that you erase from previous years. So again, the standings right now, Detroit holds that second divisional seed, Tampa Bay ahead of them. They have teams behind them in terms of points percentage and games in hand that could pass them. Boston has a game in hand and could pass them. The Habs have 2 games in hand and could pass them. The Panthers have 2 games in hand, but would be a point behind if they win both. But still, that's really good footing for Detroit. Goal differential still leaves a little bit to be desired, but the team is very obviously trending in the right direction. And as we get into some critical months here, where teams are making decisions, where do we want to go as we approach the trade deadline or roster freezes and things like that, they're making sure they're not out of the race early. They're making sure they don't have to fire their coach to rip off 2 separate 7-game win streaks to get back in things. So all in all, a good picture for Detroit right now. How do you feel about, their footing in the probably way too early playoff race here?
Uncomfortable. As optimistic as I am with what they've been doing, until you see that little C beside their name that says clinched, it could be a 10-point lead with 5 games left.
That's oddly specific number of points.
It's a man who's been hurt before.
More than a few times. But I don't know why I think about it so much this year, but I remember a quote, and we've talked about it a lot, from John Cooper from years ago. There's going to be a year where the top teams drop a little bit and the bottom teams come up a little bit and they all meet in the middle and it's chaos. We are there. This is anybody's ballgame, not just to make the playoffs, but to win the division. I'm not saying the Red Wings are going to win the division, but they're right there. This is that moment of, I don't know if, in my mind, the expectation is playoffs, but the way everything's shaking out is starting to get that vibe of it's playoffs or something's wrong.
My expectation is playoffs. You can add whatever caveats of if injury derails it, whatever. That's all assumed. I've seen how this team can play. We've all seen how they can be good. There are not too many fluky wins in there that you could take away from them. This team can be a good team relative to the rest of the Eastern Conference. My expectation is playoffs is a good result. I can't think of a way where I wouldn't be disappointed if they miss the playoffs and there wasn't some obvious, like, catastrophic reason why.
I think at some point, fans need to have the expectation or the mentality that this is a playoff team. I think the organization has to have that mindset, and so do the players. And I think we're at sort of the fork in the road where it's like, okay, this is how the division is. Doesn't matter what we think of it. Do we believe that we are a playoff team? And if the answer is no, that's not good. But at some point, you need to be like, all right, we're going to be a playoff team. We are trending in the right way. There's been enough positive things we've seen with this team over the last little bit. It's like, okay, this is it. We're almost halfway through the season. We're sitting tied for first in the division. This is the year where we break through. And I think it's more of a mindset thing for players than anything else. And it kind of all comes back to that winner culture versus loser culture. And this might be the watershed season where they flip the script.
They have 2 games at home upcoming on the 16th. That's Tuesday night. And then Wednesday night, 7:30 Eastern against the Utah Mammoth. And then we're going to be recording back with you Thursday morning. Show will drop sometime Thursday afternoon. So that's what Detroit has upcoming. That's where they are now. Nice to finish that road trip on a high note. We're going to take a quick break here to hear from the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast. And when we're back, Hughes news. The end of it for now. You know that feeling when momentum shifts in the game? You've had a rough stretch, things haven't gone your way. You're really just trying to get confidence back more than anything. Well, hair loss can hit kind of just like that. You start noticing changes and suddenly you're not feeling like yourself anymore. That's where Hims comes in. Hims provides access to licensed medical providers who can help you find what works for your hair loss, all through a straightforward online process that fits your schedule. You'll get access to proven ingredients that can help stop further hair loss and even regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months if prescribed. There are no hidden fees, no surprise costs, just personalized care built around you. Think of Hims as that locker room veteran, that guy who's been there, done that, the go-to for getting your confidence back in the lineup. Expert guidance, trusted treatments, and a process that actually makes sense. For simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/wingedwheel. That's hims.com/wingedwheel for your free online visit. hims.com/wingedwheel. Individual results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Featured products include compounded drug products which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Welcome back. Quinn Hughes is making his debut right now as a member of the Minnesota Wild.
Against Boston.
Bill Guerin, you are nothing if not an absolute wild card. And no matter what, folks might think about your ability to GM, that is not a boring man.
If you give me 31 guesses where Quinn Hughes would get traded to, Minnesota may have been at the bottom. I would have put almost more money that he resigned to Vancouver.
I tend to agree with you there.
Because when you told me, obviously I was not looking at my phone, and when you text me and it only says check Twitter, I know something has happened. And when I saw Minnesota, my brain was kind of like, it didn't connect.
Minnesota what? What about it?
The Twins? Like, I don't understand. Like, what about all this? Yeah. Feels like Minnesota came out of nowhere. And then you saw the trade details and you're like, okay.
Yep.
Okay. That was a big boy trade.
So let's lay it all out. Quinn Hughes to the Minnesota Wild, and in exchange, Minnesota sends Marco Rossi, Liam Ogren, a 2026 first-round pick, and the gold chip of the trade, the biggest piece, Zeev Buium, going the other way. And that was what the entire deal hinged on. And, since that happened, more and more details have been released. There is not any kind of belief or messaging other than Quinn Hughes and his camp have not committed to an extension with Minnesota. So Bill Guerin made this deal from Minnesota knowing that there's no guarantee that Quinn Hughes is going to stay. Part of the shock is that's not the Eastern Conference. It's closer, sure, to New Jersey and his brothers and his family, but it's not the Eastern Conference. And Minnesota sending Zeev Buium, among other things, like Zeev Buium plus, without a guarantee that this guy is going to be a Minnesota Wild player after 1.5 seasons. That's a hefty return. Think what you want about Zeev Buium. I understand he hasn't had a hot start to his NHL career and there's been struggles, but that is still one of the premier defensive prospects in the league, and one of the only guys who I think a lot of people who cover prospects and look at young players and their development who would say could potentially be something close to Quinn Hughes, and that's who the Canucks got in return. For an organization that's a dumpster fire more times than not, I'm pretty impressed with how Vancouver handled this one.
So do you want to approach this from the Minnesota or the Vancouver side first?
Well, I think we have to cover this. Yeah, let's do the value of Minnesota and Vancouver before we get to the Red Wings part. Sure. Let's go Vancouver.
Okay. First and foremost, my thoughts on this from Vancouver are overall, this entire scenario is a complete and abject failure. You had the greatest defenseman in franchise history. At worst, if you want to be extremely pessimistic, a top 5 defenseman in the NHL. And that's on the pessimistic side.
A lot of nights he's number 2.
And I believe Freeman or somebody reported that he was not going to sign an extension with them this summer. And that is a Vancouver Canucks fact, not a Quinn Hughes fact. That is a tell on the Canucks.
Like extension, to clarify, in Vancouver.
Correct.
Rutherford even said, I did not believe he would sign. He had that indication a long time ago.
Yeah, and that is a failure as a franchise. And then you look at the whole Pettersson, Miller, beyond that, a debacle. Just, I don't know how, not that they were ever cup contenders, but they won a playoff round 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So now they are starting they should better be starting a full-blown rebuild if they're doing this. That being said, Buium, Ogren, Rossi in a first for 1.5 years of Quinn Hughes is phenomenal for the position that they were in. If Zeev Buium is 80% of what Quinn Hughes, and that's on the extreme optimistic side, and he's there for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, this is a grand slam of a trade. Because if Quinn Hughes had given you indication, you have me for 1.5 more years, and that is it. Boy, did they maximize the value on those 1.5 years. I think Buium actually got a point in his first game with Vancouver, too.
1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his debut.
Well, he has to play 28 minutes a game now.
Well, he is their best defenseman already. Like, what more was Vancouver going to get? Like, I don't care if it's Connor McDavid up on the trade block. If you're trading him with 1.5 years left on his contract, you're not going to do much better than that.
No.
Like, that is, again, an unbelievably awful and stupid situation they put themselves in. But man, that return sure eases the blow. Like, Rossi's going to be a good 50 to 60 point middle six center. Ogren's an okay depth forward, and I'm sure that first round pick is going to be a late first round pick. But still, if you get a second line center, a top pair D, a fourth line winger, and let's just say that first round pick becomes a third liner of some sort, boy, does that give you a hell of a head start on the rebuild.
And I'll tell you where my sort of misfortune for Vancouver fans is. I don't think it matters, really, because Vancouver as an organization is just has the wrong people in the wrong places, and ownership is way too hands-on. Like, they've been handed a restart on this, but I just don't think that executive group has the ability to sort of navigate a rebuild. They said retool, and to me, a retool means you were once a good team. They're a disaster in terms of a franchise. Like, if they're going to do anything, they need to tear it to the ground, and it's going to be very difficult. obviously bringing in essentially 4 first-round picks is great value, and I think they probably made out as best they could in that situation. But for fans, like, it's still the same people running the show. Like, I just don't see how they can navigate now what they're calling a retool.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, the surprise in how this one went is surprising. And you learn a bit more about how things came together, and I think this is more a Minnesota thing than Vancouver. You know, credit to them. They got the deal done. That is what it is. But this was like Bill Guerin's going balls to the wall attitude is a lot of what got them that return. And they said no one came close to that return in terms of their offers. And when I dug into this, I heard the exact same thing everywhere from every team that was seriously involved or not. A lot of teams were, you know, they talked conceptually about what players that they might include, and they started to draw lines in the sand. Elliot Friedman reported, and we can corroborate that there was at least one player that the Red Wings were like, no, that's a non-starter. My belief from what we've heard is that that's Simon Edvinsson. That was Detroit's line in the sand. But it never really got to the point where anyone else is a serious contender, because Minnesota's player, their line in the sand player, well, Vancouver got them to throw it in Zeev Buium. And most other teams were like, if we can't get a guarantee of an extension in terms of like just a conversation with the player, like that messaging was consistent across the board, then, you know, we can't get to that level. If Bill Guerin didn't say, screw it, I want to make sure that I'm happy at Christmas time, I'm getting this done, I'm moving Zeev Buium, this return, like, I don't think second place would have been very close, and you would have been looking at a way smaller return. And I think that includes the best prospect not being a Zeev Buium type. Before we get into the, you know, Red Wings equivalent kind of thing here, I think we have to open the Red Wings side of this by saying, does not matter what you feel about the return, whether it would be too much for the Red Wings to match, or it's, you know, they could have matched it and they should have done it, would have made the team better. This sucks. Like, a player of Quinn Hughes' caliber who had ties in some ways to the Red Wings, you know, you would imagine that he would like to play in Detroit among other teams, would fit the bill for at least the next 2 years. No one can say that he'd extend here for sure or anything. It just sucks to miss out on a player of this caliber when this team needs a player of this caliber. They don't happen often. We made a meal talking about Mitch Marner because that was one of the biggest names to potentially reach free agency. Didn't, you know, still got traded technically before the signing. And Quinn Hughes, like, he's way beyond that. It's like he was made to fit the gap of what the Red Wings need to really take that next step. And to not land that guy, no matter what you feel about the details, it does suck. It's a missed opportunity, whether you think it's their fault or it's not their fault. And there's no way around that. Like, it is 100% something that passed Detroit by.
I will say I'm happy from all the reports that Detroit was one of the more aggressive pursuers. At least we know they're engaging in this stuff and they're not just passengers on the sideline. Because you're right in everything you said, that, and we've always talked about when players of this caliber come available, you do not have the luxury of not pursuing it. You have to. And seeing the return, man, there's so much nuance that goes into this, because I don't think it's a 1-to-1 equivalent if Detroit did it versus Minnesota did it for the same price and everything there. Because, like, looking at this from Minnesota side to end up comparing it to Detroit's, I don't like this for Minnesota. I will say I respect the absolute swing here, the belief in their team that they can either A, win it in the next 2 years, or B, get Quinn Hughes to extend. But if neither of those things happen, this is a disaster for them. And for Minnesota specifically, do you think even with Quinn Hughes, they're getting out of the first round? There's two.
Not if they have to play Dallas or Colorado.
There's 2 teams in the entire Western Conference I like more than Minnesota, and they're in their division.
Yeah, the Central is a gong show.
Now, it's hockey. Anything could happen. And if they get past one of those 2 teams, Congrats. They run into the other one.
And I think Minnesota is probably thinking, well, with Quinn Hughes, we have a puncher's chance of beating one of them.
And I think that's true. Like,
it's true, but it's not likely. And you don't make decisions this significant on a puncher's chance. And that's why I don't like this for Minnesota. Because if they were in any other division, this is, even if it's only a year and a half of Quinn Hughes, I get it. I fully understand it. The league is wide open this year. It feels like outside of that one division. And if he doesn't extend there, you gave up a near decade of a good top pair likely defenseman and a middle six center. And, the other pieces are going to be what they are.
Liam Ogren's been pretty disappointing so far, I'll say.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm throwing him in as like a fourth liner in here. But again, and another first round pick on top of that. And of course, they have the option. They can always flip him at the deadline next year if things are not looking bright. And they can retain salary, send him to an actual contender, and probably recoup pretty close to what this is. But it's just, I don't think he's likely to resign there, and I don't think they're likely to make a cup run. And hockey is a little different from other sports. Like, you look at the Blues, and the Capitals especially are a great example of this. If you don't load up and throw all in for 1 year, because we've seen that burn many teams over the year, you try to keep the window open as long as you can. And then eventually, hopefully, one of those years, everything, all the stars align. A guy like Kuznetsov has a career year to use the Capitals, and then you go on your cup run. Those two Pittsburgh teams that won their last back-to-back cups, those weren't wagons, but just the stars aligned. They got a couple cups out of it.
They had the best player on the planet.
That helps. But every team that gets to the second round of the playoff at this point has superstars. So you could argue Larkin, Raymond, Seider are those guys right now. DeBrincat's playing like it. So if they could build around him, yeah, they've got just as good a chance as any. But this shortens Minnesota's window considerably. Because if he doesn't re-sign, yeah, they still have Faber, Boldy, Kaprizov. Well, they haven't made them a contender yet. What makes them think that's going to change? Again,
by adding Quinn Hughes, and then we've seen like the cascade effect.
100%. They make a run or they extend him. Everything I say is moot. This is a phenomenal trade for Minnesota, and I respect that they're willing to make the gamble.
Yeah,
but it's a gamble that could come up snake eyes.
It's a huge gamble. Even as someone who gave the preamble of like, this is something that passed Detroit by, and whether you agree with the comparable cost or not, which we'll do in a second here. Like, you didn't end up with Quinn Hughes, and Minnesota has him, and I mean they're waking up Christmas morning happier, but it's a huge gamble. And like, really, Minnesota, you look at even Rutherford's comments, and I just want to put it out there, like, GMs have no incentive to be 100% honest. Like, it just isn't the case. So take everything with a big grain of salt, whatever any of the GMs say. But Rutherford said, like, I had the indication from Quinn that he wasn't going to extend in Vancouver. He said that at some point he wants to be closer to his brothers and eventually play with his brothers. We'll see if that's actually the case. Minnesota isn't, poised to be the long-term landing spot. So yeah, it's a gamble. The avenues of like trading next year, or if you have enough success, you can convince him to stay. Those are there for sure. But I mean, we'll see. And it's especially another funny layer here is Guerin being GM of Team USA. But the comparable offer for Detroit to bring it back, because Red Wings fans rightfully are disappointed. I look at Zeev Buium being added, and I'm like, that's the line in the sand player. And Minnesota was the first one to pull the trigger, the only one by all rights. Now, what would the comp be for the Red Wings? My guess was Simon Edvinsson. And then, Red Wings first round pick. And then you grab Liam Ogren's not like the,
call it Carter Mazer.
Yeah, I would say Mazer, Bachelnikov, Lombardi, more that tier. I don't think he's Carter Bear tier because he's been disappointing so far, but there's still some value there. And then one of Casper Danielson.
Yeah.
So those four pieces, would you do that?
Trading a lot of your center depth, like you're kind of creating a problem.
One of Casper Danielson, but you're
creating a bit of a problem. And that's where like the whole Quinn Hughes saga, I think there's two viewpoints at least, and I think I agree with both of them. It's like, when you see that return and you try to do the Red Wings equivalency, it's like, yeah, I can understand why people wouldn't want Detroit to do that. And then there's the other side that's saying, well, players like Quinn Hughes never become available, so you do whatever you can, and it's disappointing that the Red Wings weren't able to get that done. I think both sides have valid arguments, and I don't think either one is right or wrong. For me, though, seeing that the return that Vancouver got for Quinn Hughes, like, I get really uncomfortable with that. And like Brad said, like, if Zeev Buium can be 80% Quinn Hughes, that's great value. I think Simon Edvinsson is way closer to being 80% of Quinn Hughes than Zeev Buium currently is.
And they don't play the same style, but yeah, in terms of performance,
Yeah.
like, I understand Zeev's perceived value or potential value is sky high, but Simon Edvinsson is a first pair defenseman today.
And he's an unreal 5-on-5 producing defenseman.
With size.
Yes.
So like, yeah, it's not apples to apples, but that's a very valuable player. And like, so same question to you, Brad. Do you do that? Or if you have a different comp?
So if we call it Edvinsson, Casper,
Danielson, yeah.
Mazur, and a first-round pick. I know I'm a hypocrite because I say you have to overpay, you have to do anything you can to get a player like this. Edvinsson's my line in the sand, and I wasn't going to cross it. There's two, I'll call it three reasons why I don't, and they all revolve around Simon Edvinsson, because I think for the second, third, and fourth value items, I'd be fine with that. If you could throw any other Zeev Buium equivalent piece, if Detroit could hypothetically create one, I would do it. But Edvinsson specifically, because one, he plays left D, same as Quinn Hughes, a position the Red Wings organizationally right now severely lack depth. You are filling one hole while opening up the same hole. So the Red Wings, at least in terms of depth chart, have the same problem they have. Two, now this isn't a comparison, but if Axel Sandin-Pellikka is 80% of Quinn Hughes, again, optimistically speaking, him and Mo Seider are more than capable of running the power play for the next 5 to 10 years. And Simon Edvinsson, the style of hockey he plays, big, aggressive, mean, skates well, defends well, that's a playoff type defenseman.
Yes.
When things get tough, Simon Edvinsson is the type of defenseman you want there. I'm not saying Quinn Hughes isn't. I'm saying that in relation to the fact that the Red Wings have an ASP who could play that role. Not to the level of Quinn Hughes, but an ASP and an Edvinsson makes me a heck of a lot more comfortable than an ASP and a Quinn Hughes. And again, it's just the physicality, the defensive nature of the playoffs. And then third, the window, age, it matters. Like, Quinn Hughes isn't old, but he's what?
26.
4 or 5 years older than Simon Edvinsson?
We got 4 years basically to see if he can hit that 80%. And
Yeah.
Though we're trying to elongate how long the Red Wings can be a contender. And I mean, Quinn Hughes basically jumps it up immediately, almost, I would say. Like, they're going to make a big push in the Atlantic, but with Simon Edvinsson, if he continues to grow the way he has over his short term in the NHL, like, it's going to be a very long window.
Like, I think people around the league are still severely undervalue Simon Edvinsson. We're Red Wings fans. We know. We understand how good Simon Edvinsson is right now, and then understanding how young he is and how good he's likely to become. He ain't going to be Quinn Hughes. But if the Red Wings ever win a cup, you can just see it in your head. You have Seider with someone on the top pair to absolutely throw to Rockstar unit. And then you have Edvinsson with, call it ASP on the second unit. And you go, that top four is incredible, which is why I was very pro Quinn Hughes without Edvinsson, because then you have Seider, Hughes, Edvinsson, ASP. There it is. That is your path to the cup.
That is literally the best top four in the league.
Yeah, and the Red Wings don't have that superstar forward coming through, where their best path right now to win, and I'm going to flinch when I say it, is through defense. But just that's the way the chips have fallen, the way the drafts have fallen.
They've entered the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But if you're giving up a key part of that defense, well, then it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's the team-specific calculus. Here's the thing. The crux of this all, and we've both named it, and it was implicit, I think, in what you guys were saying, but without the guarantee of the extension, then no. Yeah, I do understand it. However, there's a lot of merit to the argument, and we should get, thoughts from some other folks that we've been discussing this with, because there's a lot of really good kind of competing arguments here. As Evan said, everyone has a lot of ground to stand on. But you can't include Edvinsson if that falls through and he doesn't extend. You can flip him. There's other ways to do it, and you can GM your way around it, but it's a fine line to walk, and it could be risky. So there's a big risk there. So I'm not saying definitely it would be a bad idea, but without the guarantee, I do see why, and I think that's what ultimately pushed Detroit away from even getting close to adding a line in the sand player. And then the moment, Minnesota added it, I'm sure Detroit was thinking something like, without Edvinsson, but then you add on to a hypothetical package, I don't know for sure, of like ASP, one of the centers, a winger, and a pick kind of thing. Then you can add on to that to sweeten it. But the moment someone added that kind of gold standard Zeev Buium type, then it was just a moot point for everyone. I'll say, though, if you knew Quinn Hughes was extending, it would suck. It would hurt. Everything you said, Brad, is right, that it would hurt come playoff time, and size and physicality would become an even bigger problem. If I knew Quinn Hughes was extending, I would do the deal.
That would put me on the line of I could be swayed either way. But that wasn't what happened here.
No.
And Pat Brisson even said, we did not tell any teams that we were going to be extending July 1. It was very clear that they were not doing that, and any trade would not come with a handshake agreement of an extension. And the second I heard that, my mind flipped from I was on the fence to I'm glad Detroit didn't do that.
I don't think Detroit was the only team either, as evidenced by the lack of, competing offers to the Minnesota's level. But I don't think Detroit was the only team that was put off by the lack of, commitment to an extension, or like the hard line of we're not even talking about this till summer. And I get it. But the team that did take the risk, who's taking the gamble, they're shaking the dice in their hands right now, that's Bill Guerin.
That's why I respect the hell out of this move. I low-key love it.
Yeah.
Like, we talk time and time again, you got to take risks and you got to seize opportunities. And yeah, maybe this wasn't the one for the Red Wings, but I love that Bill Guerin's like, we got the Caprilionaire, we've got Wallstedt, who looks like an absolute stud. We've got already a great defensive unit. They got Matt Boldy, who's over a point per game as well. Like, they're going to do their best to convince Quinn Hughes to say Minnesota's the hockey state. It's a great place to live. It's closer to home. They're going to do their absolute best to try and keep Quinn Hughes. And I love this risk. Like, it is a risk. It's a massive risk, but I respect the absolute hell out of it.
I love and appreciate, again, another thing between Guerin and Rutherford here. I think they're both bad GMs. But I love that they are just willing to put their mind to something. It's like, we are going to get this done right now by whatever means necessary, and they just go. And again, it's a gamble. Someone was going to take the gamble once they knew that the handshake extension wasn't going to be an option. And Guerin was the one who was willing to... I specifically look like a moron if on July 1 Quinn Hughes extends, because then it's like, oh yeah, no crap, that's a great deal for Minnesota. But again, until it's pen to paper, or until that Stanley Cup is going over his head, to me, in my mind, nothing in hockey is black and white, but this is pretty black and white. You win a Stanley Cup, or he extends, or this is a bad trade.
Or if Zeev Buium's a bust, then...
But he's on pace for...
Surely
164 points in his first 82 games with the Canucks. So
yeah, surely he will rejuvenate and explode in his career in Vancouver.
I didn't realize that. Like, I understand it's not a hot start, and I don't think the Wild were like selling on him, like trying to shop him out there. But I was like, oh man, if I had any indication you can get Zeev Buium, buying him while his value is at his lowest.
I don't think his value is that low. I think people know He had what was almost a point per game for his first half dozen to dozen games of the season, and then leveled off a lot. But I don't think he's even been that disappointing this year, and he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to be.
Confident kid too.
Yep.
Yeah. You want to know something that's going to make Evan so angry to hear me say?
What does this have to do with Elias Pettersson?
Vancouver full fire sale.
They're going to get the defensive Elias Pettersson. That's what I hope out of all of this. But no, in all seriousness, I don't think the Hughes saga is over. Like we talked at length just now about it's not a guarantee. It's actually, I think it's less than 50% if you had to put odds on it that he extends in Minnesota. I don't think it's out of the cards that Detroit's still in this in a year and a half. It's a year and a half, so you have a little bit of a break, Evan. It's a reprieve from this, storyline that wouldn't go away. But if it's not New Jersey, same thing we were saying. If it's not New Jersey, and he actually is worried about pushing his brother Luke too far down the lineup, I think you can potentially see Detroit back in the mix as early as next trade deadline. Which I know everyone's like, shut up. The Red Wings just already missed out on Quinn Hughes for the second time. Stop it. I do mean that. Like I as much as it pains me to say, I don't think the saga is over.
Do you think this hurts now? Just wait till we miss out on Quinn Hughes for a third time.
I could not believe it, man. I was just, my jaw dropped. Melissa and I were talking about party prep, and I just went, "What?" And she's like, "I didn't say anything."
We will not have Little John at this party.
No, we could not afford him. All our money went into the what's it called, the caramel budget that you had earlier.
I could tell.
Yeah, she rocked those. Quinn Hughes to Minnesota is like, I feel like you have to retire the Joe Biden meme now of him just yelling Minnesota.
Oh, that was the funniest damn thing I ever saw. I don't even remember what you put in the tweet. And then it was just, I click on it, Joe Biden, Minnesota.
Feel bad for the other teams in the Central. They're like, man, Colorado and Dallas are wagons this year. Maybe we can just try and squeak into that third divisional seed. And then Minnesota's like, oh yeah, you think so, eh? You're going to be wild card teams.
I will say, shrewd of Bill Guerin to take advantage of the one indicator, the one true and universal constant of when you should believe your team is good versus not. Your goaltending's going well. You have a good goalie in net. That's all that actually matters. Everything else is fluff. It's all,
Yeah, them putting up shutouts every other game. That's sustainable for another 50 games, right?
John Gibson's doing it on his own.
Red Wings are going to enter their own data points on this one.
That's right. Detroit misses out on Quinn Hughes. That sucks. Everyone's disappointed. But, I mean, at least it's not out east for now. All right, other NHL news. The Edmonton Oilers finally solved their goalie problems.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's really funny the way that all played out, eh?
The Quinn Hughes trade, though a gamble, at least made sense.
You think Wallstedt, just destroying Edmonton the other night, really, lit the fire for them to make a bad trade?
Yeah, they said that we're not going to force anything unless it makes a lot of sense. And it's like, well, that's all you've ever done. And, oh, look, you just did it again. It must have. Between Wallstedt and then watching Kosa do historic things with Grand Rapids, they are probably seething.
Well, they solved that by trading a second-round pick, Brett Kulak, a useful left-shot defenseman, and Stuart Skinner for slightly more expensive and longer-term Stuart Skinner.
Yeah. Well, Tristan Jarry, 5.375.
Yeah, did they basically have to move Kulak to make the money work?
Yes. For Skinner, who's making 2.6. Skinner had 1 year left. This is year 3. This was Skinner's last year. This is year 3 of 5 for Jarry. They got Samuel Poulin in the deal, just moving things around. But yeah, essentially the 2029 second-round pick. That to me screamed, I'm not going to be GM in 2029. So if this works out or not, that's not my problem.
If Tristan Jarry turns back into, let's say, Tristan Jarry, by the end of this season, Stan Bowman's not worried about the 2026 draft.
That's the only thing to me where I'm like, I understand Edmonton's calculus here. Because we always say, you have McDavid, you have Draisaitl, you can't be, McDavid took the discount. McDavid, you have him in his prime. He's doing things that have never been seen before on the ice. You have to win a cup with him. It's a crime that you haven't already won a cup. You need to do something different. Okay, good goaltending's not out there in an obvious way. You pick a guy who at least has proven that on his day can do it, because I don't think Stuart Skinner on his day can do it.
Stuart Skinner, you mean the guy who's gotten within 2 wins of the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row, can't do it?
Yeah, but Brad, how good was he during those stretches? A lot of the time it was in spite of the team.
He got on some heaters in the playoffs.
And he also lost them some games outright.
Let me tell you about Tristan Jarry's playoff experience.
Yeah, okay, but Tristan Jarry has won. Like he's not. He's a career .909 in the playoffs. That's his save percentage. He's from out west. He's from Surrey, BC. I think was it a good gamble? I certainly would have done it. I don't understand what math they came to or that deal they had to pull the trigger now, but I understand their rationale of we have to try something different. They'll look like geniuses if it works, but I would be surprised.
It's a choice. Like I said, I could absolutely hear the argument that, okay, is Jarry a better goaltender than Stuart Skinner, full stop? I think they're comparable.
I think they're the same goalie this year.
Yep, I agree. I will give the edge to Jarry just because he's been a little better this year. But then you're adding more AAV and 2 years extra of term. If this doesn't go well, you're stuck again. Like, that's the part that I can't wrap my head around, is when Stan Bowman said the extra 2 years of term was a good thing for a goalie who was on waivers 5 months ago.
Get at him for free.
Like, you passed on Wallstedt after Detroit jumped the line and got Kosa. Like, Ken Holland wanted Kosa. Great. Detroit jumped the line and got Kosa. You could have had Wallstedt. You wanted Kosa because you needed a goalie. Not because he had to be from Alberta. You needed a goalie. Okay, you like Kosa's tools and physical package more than Wallstedt? Sure. They're very different goaltenders. They were both phenomenal goaltenders in their draft class, and by and large, Wallstedt was rated higher. So if you missed out on Kosa and you needed a goalie so bad that you were the laughingstock of all Canadian hockey teams in terms of how you were equipping yourself for cup runs, which is saying something when the Toronto Maple Leafs exist, you still have to take the other goalie. They skipped on Wallstedt to take Ken Holland, Tyler Wright special, a guy out of the queue who became nothing for you.
I can't believe it. We've tried this before and it didn't work. We should do it again.
And then you follow that up by bringing in Stan Bowman, who does that. Like, it brings in... I just don't... It feels
literally a monkey could be the GM of the Edmonton Oilers. Their needs have been so obvious for so long that it should have been resolved in a blockbuster type trade. Edmonton should have like 3 Stanley Cups by now. There's no excuse. The fact that they are still doing the same thing, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am so glad we're not an Edmonton Oilers podcast.
It feels like, let's say Tristan Jarry goes off and they make a cup run and they win the cup. It honestly just feels like that's luck.
I would not be betting on that.
No.
There were so many better options. Like, even if they went, not that I'm saying him specifically, but I'll just use it as a reference point. If they go find some backup goalie from another NHL team who's got some good underlyings and that team's got either an established starter, they're rebuilding. So call it Laurent Brossoit in Chicago or something dumb like that and go, okay, we're going to go trade a 3rd round pick for him. He can back up Stuart Skinner for when Skinner goes full Skinner, and we can ride this guy. And if at the end of this season it doesn't work, we can at least then say we tried something, it didn't work. And then you go throw every prospect and pick you have at UC Saros or Elias Sorokin or who the hell ever, and overpay by like 100% value just to be like, okay, here's our superstar goalie. If this doesn't work, it's just a curse.
Yeah, and I think if they overpay like that, yeah, that sucks. But then Stan Bowman comes out and says, this has been our biggest need since Connor McDavid has been on this team, since we drafted him. We had to go and do this. Everyone's like, I agree.
Yep, horrible price to pay, but you have a McDavid, a Draisaitl, a Bouchard. You guys have a roster that should win a Stanley Cup, and you can never get a save. So we respect it. Like I said, they're not in the same position as Minnesota. Like, with all due respect, they are, any given year they could win the Stanley Cup. Not that they have a good roster necessarily, but they have a Connor McDavid and a Leon Draisaitl, at least when Draisaitl's staying on his feet. And like,
I'm not concerned about guys like Draisaitl come playoffs. Like,
no, I know. I was making fun of him for diving.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was
well,
so
it's a World Cup
frustrating.
year, so
that was such a bad. But either way, Like, try something for this year. If you can go and get Saros tomorrow, do it. But either get a jobber that costs you nothing and has no term and whatever, and hopefully catch lightning in a bottle. And if it doesn't work, then the offseason plan is, who is the superstar goalie that we can throw enough at the team will do it?
This team is like just hampered by bad decisions from either the current or previous management.
It's both.
Like, you look at their Puckpedia page, all you see are the little anchors and shields for no move and no trade clauses. Like, the cap has gone up by $1 billion. It's going to go up by another $2 billion. And they still had to ship out a player who I understand wasn't having the best season, but very recently was good, useful depth for a team that struggled to play defense in Kulak. You're up against the cap this year because you have guys like Darnell Nurse with protection at $9.25 million until the year 2030. Like, look at the New Jersey Devils, actually. We didn't even talk about this. The Devils, you want to know why they couldn't get the deal done for Hughes? They couldn't get guys to agree to waive their no trade and no move clauses. They couldn't clear the cap space, and they handed out no trade and no moves like candy, and they're locked in. Doesn't matter what your cap number even is in that space. You have given out terrible contracts in terrible term in those negotiations. And the Edmonton Oilers, with all of their cap sheet and their protection their players have and who aren't performing, they put themselves in this position when a lot of other teams with the rising cap are coming out of their restrictions. Like, really, it's a shame for hockey in general to see, like, I don't want to say squandered years, because you've seen McDavid in the finals 2 years in a row. I'm not saying he has to win and deserves it just for being good. It's a team sport, but it really is. It's like you see what happens on the ice and then you see what happens with management. You're like, good Lord.
They couldn't be any more opposite of one another. Like, Connor McDavid is doing this, like, in spite of the Edmonton Oilers. Like, what he's doing is beyond reason. Like, he shouldn't have to go supernova for them to even have a chance. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, till the next time they do it. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we're back, the final segment on this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, back after this.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. If you want to support the show, again, access to benefits like the bonus overtime episodes, the Discord, the giveaways, and if you want to yell at us about Quinn Hughes, you can do it in the comments. Patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. Let's take some questions from our patrons. People are passionate today. I was recovering from the Christmas party last night, so the thread went up a little late, but still quite a few comments came in. So I think people have some things to say. First one from And I'm Devin says, if you could pick up and place on the Red Wings for free, which player of the following two would you choose? Tom Wilson or Tage Thompson?
I'll take Tom Wilson, please.
Interesting.
I love violence.
Yeah, you know what? I shouldn't even be surprised. That isn't interesting. Tom Wilson is 31. He'll be 32 by the end of the season. And Tage Thompson, and I think the age is going to be what decides it for me here. Tage Thompson is 28. I'm going to take Tage there.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tage as well.
Boring.
Have you seen the way that dude scores goals? There's nothing boring about him.
You want to see Tom Wilson suplex a guy?
I'm not going to lie. I think yours would be more entertaining. We'd be frustrated way less with Tom Wilson. You'll score less. Although, hold on. Tage Thompson, 15 goals this season. Tom Wilson, 17 goals this season. So what am I saying?
Yeah. Tage Thompson's doing that on the Buffalo Sabres. That's a Washington 30.
Yeah, I understand a little. But Tom Wilson also, he has the I'm competing for Team Canada bump right now. Which, depending on what happens with Bedard here, he may have...
He's 400... I'm not certain about a lot of things, but I'm 400% certain he's on Team Canada.
Are we making a bet here? I believe you. I'm on the same page.
400% certain he does not finish the Olympics.
Oh, like from suspension.
They're gonna play like a Denmark or play Italy, and some poor kid is gonna get right on the train tracks and is gonna be in the. They don't even have seats in the arena yet, so he's gonna be somewhere in the concourse.
That's still dicey.
Tom Wilson's on his return flight home before that guy lands in the scaffolding outside.
Yes.
He's like, hey, Doug, why is my Why do I have a return ticket halfway through the Olympics? No one else has any return tickets right now. Well, cheaper that way, Tom. Don't even play that guy until Canada plays USA is what Canada should do.
Hey,
Yeah.
he might literally be 10-second Tom because that's how long he lasts in the Olympics.
We love a double reference there.
They just leave him in the dark like a bull with like a bag over his head. He's like so pissed off, just foaming at the mouth.
Like a gladiator, you're releasing a beast.
Yeah.
All right. MPK, the CPA, says thoughts on Owen Powers' solution to the left side defense void. Seems to be falling out of favor in Buffalo and might be in need for a change of scenery. Owen Powers is an interesting one, and Buffalo fans will tell you he's really frustrating. Very talented kid, obviously, like really talented young player. I think there's more to him than what we've seen, but is his play the reality of who he is? And like, his level of physicality or lack thereof is going to limit him in what he can do? Or do you think a change of scenery could actually help?
Traditionally speaking, when NHL players leave the Buffalo Sabres,
Yeah, that's right.
so I'll say yes. I'm in. Let's try it.
Although you're starting to hear now rumors for the millionth time about Kevin Adams might be on the way out. I don't understand how.
So call now. Don't wait.
Well, would he have the authority to make the trade? Although Pagula doesn't seem to want to do anything other than care about the Buffalo Bills. So,
And they're riding a high today. The time to strike is now.
if you can get any of those guys lower value, absolutely.
Or just pay the farm to get Darlene.
If they're dealing Darlene, yes. Copy and paste whatever deal you were offering previously for Quinn Hughes. Finnie the Pooh, and this is a related comment here, I think, in terms of, buying a team doing a fire sale if that happens. Does anyone else from the Vancouver fire sale make sense for the Red Wings now that Hughes is off the board?
Yes, Pettersson.
Marcus Pettersson.
Correct.
Evan cares so much about his dislike for Elias Pettersson.
That he actually learned who Marcus Pettersson
He learned
is.
Marcus Pettersson. He learned the difference.
Yes.
I thought for a while I could convince you that Elias Pettersson was a defenseman as well.
No, I've seen him play. He's not a defenseman.
No, but does he not know?
Oh, other Elias Pettersson?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't clarify the expensive one.
That's right. The real names, the
Yes.
government names. Yeah, Marcus Pettersson, you'd be all over that.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, depending on what they go for, sure, a guy like Sherwood or Garland, but those seem to be ripe for like vast overpays at some point by some other team, and I don't know that makes sense for the Red Wings.
I think Kiefer Sherwood would cost way too much, but with his new gear sponsorship, I think the entertainment value would be worth it.
What's his new gear sponsorship?
Sherwood.
Shocker. Do you think they paid more or less for that one?
I don't know why they paid it all. They were already getting the advertising.
Sharat Shot says, what is Kosa's path to getting a look with the big club if Gibson continues his strong play? I think he needs a look not only for this year, but next. The plan should be Kosa and Gibson, but that could be risky if Kosa spends a whole season in the AHL, plus Augustine might be less likely to sign his ELC if he'll be back up to Kosa with the Griffins. I think with Augustine on the way, you have to have Kosa up next year.
Yeah, there's no reality Kosa isn't up next year unless the second half of this season is just catastrophically bad. I think the plan when they got Gibson was Kosa runs the table in Grand Rapids this year, maybe spot fills for injury, and he's the guy in Grand Rapids. There's no platoon or anything like that. And then if it goes well, he's up the year after with Gibson because Gibson has that year on his contract left, and that's when Talbot moves on. Like, I think we set that exact scenario the day Gibson was traded.
Yeah, if injury doesn't happen, you have to find a way to still get him in for that reason. Mm-hmm. It might be tight though, right? Like if you're in a playoff race and everything, like every point matters, then are you shoehorning that?
I don't think it's necessary to get him up this year.
I think he has to play this, like at least a game or two.
There's gonna be a point where Gibson or Talbot are just, even if it's just something a little nagging or they have the flu. Yep, all right, good enough reason. Go rest for a week. Kosa, get up here. But even if that doesn't happen by some miracle, if Kosa just rides out the whole AHL season in the playoffs as the starter, getting the lion's share of the work, and then just comes up for game one of next year, that's fine too. It's not ideal, but it's more than doable.
I just, the last thing I think of is like you need to sell to Trey Augustine, who by all rights, I haven't heard any indication that he's not going to sign, but hasn't signed yet. So until it's done, it's done. Yeah. You have to sell to him like, hey, this is the plan. So
yeah, the Griffins are Augustine's team next year. Probably more in a platoon role versus what Costa's doing this year, but he'll be there next year.
Jan says, obviously our first rounder should only be in play for a big non-rental upgrade, but has the team done enough to earn, so to speak, a little help lower down the lineup, specifically the third D pair? I'm going to preempt the rest of this question by saying, yes, that third D pair gets caved constantly. I don't care if it's Hamonic or JBD or whatever. Their numbers are terrible. The top four are holding water, at the very least, if not producing great results. The third pair are getting caved. Connor Murphy might be already too expensive, but looking at the teams at the bottom of the standings, I wonder if Nashville would listen to offer for Perbix, who's under contract at $2.75 million until 2027. So very little money.
At this point, if it doesn't cost you any premium assets, nothing's off the table for me. Just try.
If you can somehow find a depth defenseman where you can get Sherratt down on the third pair, I think you're really starting to cook on that defensive end.
I don't even think at this point that's the bar for me. I think the bar is just make the third pair better. Like keep Sherratt in the top four. Obviously, what you said is more ideal, Evan. Absolutely. But if you can just improve that third pair.
The only concern I have with this question is this is also trusting the same management group to find that defenseman who also thought Eric Gustafsson, Justin Hall, and Travis Hamonic were the answers.
This is why I'm saying you go for a top four defenseman to slide somebody down the roster rather than trying to continually plug the same hole.
Find a time machine and put Anton Johansson in it, and that's your solution. God, I wish that guy was older. Just like if you had him like 4 years from now, this, in theory, you never know that he's for sure going to pan out, but it looks good, so.
We're going to confuse everybody like that one riddle in Da Vinci Code. What's the solution to the third pair? A. Johansson.
A. Johansson. A. Johansson. A, like not first initial, but like a Johansson. S. Johansson. Scarlet. Like it's one of the Pedersons. Garrett, and this last one, this one's for you, Brad. Does this mean that Erik Karlsson is going to end up being we have Quinn Hughes at home? No.
I'm okay with that.
That is...
There's our bottom pair solution. Sure, they'll get caved defensively, but at least they'll start scoring.
You're telling me that you believe Erik Karlsson would play the bottom pair if the Red Wings brought him in?
The way it stands right now, probably.
The Red Wings could almost do a 5 D-man power play.
Yeah, they could, couldn't they?
If that's the case, that's what they could certainly do something.
Who would have the least offensive ability?
If you were going, are we including Karlsson in this?
Yes.
So then you got Karlsson, ASP, Seider, Edvinsson.
ASP plays one of the half walls.
That'd be fun.
Sherratt can be net front.
I feel like you need, funny enough, I do think you need Sherratt with the puck on a stick on the point. I think good things happen when the puck is on that guy's stick. Why not?
They don't even play a structured power play. They just 5-man flow, see what happens.
Everyone is just like going with muscle memory. Like the other team has a breakout and everyone covers back just instinctually. It's the world's most defensive power play ever. All right, we're going to wrap this up. We're going to jump into our Patreon exclusive overtime. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. We're sorry that the second episode of the Quinn Hughes Detroit saga did not pan out the way folks wanted, but we'll see how things go in Minnesota. Shout out to all these sponsors of the Winged Wheel Podcast and to all of you who support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast if you want to support the show. And if you want to help us out, but Patreon's not for you, that's totally okay. Just wherever you're getting your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you're looking at our ugly mugs on YouTube, hit subscribe, leave a rating, a review, a like, share it with a friend, whatever it might be. All of those things really help us out a lot. To our name level supporters on Patreon, we cannot thank you enough. Arjun Shankar, Aikfer, Martin Norberg, THL Champ, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Glenn Brabham, Rain Dano, Below Average Ball Hockey Goalie, Matthew M. Rice, Darb EQ, C-Line, Bengo Bango, Hassam Al-Qassam, Asher Killian, Kalen Wood, Alex Toger, That's What I Appreciate About You, Derek Enstam, Matt McKay, Andy Hardcore, Sam Bankson, Citizen High Five, R.A., Aaron Hudson, Admiral Matt S. The Cheesebag Navy, The El Cato, Stephen Ortlieb, Jonathan Miller, Give Blood Fight Probert, DJ Denton, Carl Brutanen Anuski, Jay Gollum, John Engels, CB55, Connor Scovey, Adam Zuiza, Adam Rose, I Miss Pew Suter, Steve R, Hockeytown Matt, Mr. Kuzi, Chaotic Monkey, Craig Kibble, Iserplan Stan, Podgy713, Clip-Clop Nene, Unapologetic Gibson Truther, Griffin Not from Grand Rapids, Marty, Kazi the OG13, Jeff Pridemore, Eric Hill, Butts Carlton, Best James Bond, Beer League Legend, Alec, Mark Hernandez, Slim Smitty Cards, Grand Rapids Girly, Anna Sleeman, William, Mike, Asher, Chris Black, August, Brian Munn, Improved But Flawed, Chris 99 Jones, Putting on the Moritz, Trevor Centerfit, Adam, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, Quaz, Dylan Larkin Trade Sacrifice, Who Needs Quinn Anyway, I'm Not Sad, You're Sad, Matt Keeler, Linda Hull, Connor Leighton, As Good As It Jingles, Jeremiah Dobo, Josh Yelton, Brad Simmons, Darren Fick, Bex, The Hodag, Daddy Pastor Jake, The Forgive Me Father, I Have Vibes, Commander Ben Baird, The Cheesebag Space Force, Sandin-Pellikka's Pet Pelican, Griffey Boy, JM Rhapsody, Frank Stanley, Rosie Posey, That Other Guy, Pucking Puck, Carl Thames, Nerno, The Hat 123, Steven, A. Aaron, Corey Prida, All Motor No Hands, Gene Sullivan, Dirty D and the Boys, Big Cheese, James Pridemore, Upernadian, Drop the Puck, Eric Nance, Ann Stanislavski, Jim, Bellingham Basketballs, Wingsfan in St. Louis, Scott, Johnny Page, Lucas Raymond, Cops, Gump Lip, Trent Thorough, Grebsky, Evan Beckner, Return of Jambo, C.E. Hayes, Finney to the Rafters, Jacob Marsh, Falkness, Fight Night at the Joe, Axel's Sandy Pelican, The Octopi's Ninth Leg, Finney the Pooh, Kurt, Chin, brand new name level supporter. Did he get me with something there?
No.
I was worried. And your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. We will talk to you Thursday.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.
This message is brought to you by Greenlight Lending. Are you facing financial red lights on your home ownership journey? Don't have money for a down payment or closing costs? Struggling with your current mortgage payment or other debt obligations? Or maybe you have a complicated situation like credit challenges or self-employment income? At Greenlight Lending, they turn those red lights green with creative mortgage solutions for purchase and refinance loans. Their team crafts personalized plans with flexible closing cost options, competitive brokered rates, and innovative loan programs tailored to your needs. Whether it's finding the right loan or guiding you through the process, they're here to help you score your home ownership goals. Let's get you out of the penalty box and into the game. Head to gogreenlightlending.com to explore solutions or call Nick directly at 586-321-1888 for your customized plan. All loans are subject to credit approval, terms, and conditions. Rates and programs vary. Contact for details. Greenlight Lending, lighting the way to your financial future. NMLS 2676683, an equal housing opportunity lender, proud sponsor of the Winged Wheel Podcast.